So hi everyone and welcome to Josefine Meets series. And today I'm here with the lovely Kate Turner, who, as I am, is also a former corporate professional, now turned coach. And I'm really, really happy that I get to be here with Kate. And we had a little chat beforehand just to make sure that we are on the same page, because I think that is really important for these things. And we met earlier before that, of course. So I think we really hit it off. And I am so excited to have Kate here, that we both get to share our stories with you guys. But I'm handing over to you, Kate, now to introduce yourself too.
Hi, thanks, Josephine, and thank you for inviting me to do this. When we spoke, it really did seem like we had similar backgrounds and could connect on a variety of different levels. And so I'm excited to talk today a little bit about success mindset and intention setting. Some background on me. I, as you mentioned, am a former corporate professional that is now turned executive coach. And my background was always as a high performer. I was a striver that wanted more and was always going for that next promotion. And as I amassed accomplishments, they never really felt like enough. I always was wanting more and more and never really satisfied. And it wasn't until I started shifting my focus from the external accomplishments to the internal feelings of success and understanding who I truly was and what I truly wanted, that then I started to see a shift in really being satisfied and being able to take meaningful action. And so that's exactly what I do with my clients today.
Oh, that is so cool. And I see we have Jason with us today. Hi, Jason. It's so nice to see you here.
Hi, Jason.
So I definitely agree. I mean, when I was in corporate, I never, and I actually spoke about this last week already, but I never really had any goals myself because I didn't really want to be there in the first place. If someone comes to you with that, they say, oh, I don't really know what I want. How would you approach them the first thing that you would?
That's a
very open, very big question. I'm so sorry. We could go on for hours about this one probably, but
yeah, but I think that it's a fair point because a lot of people either come in with one very specific myopic goal, or they come in, like you said, where they're really not sure and they just almost feel like a place of being stuck or overwhelmed. And I think that's the first part of it, is how do you actually bring into focus what is important? So understanding why somebody is feeling stuck or unsure is the first important part to make. Are they unsure because they feel like they've just been doing what's expected of them? Or are they unsure because there's been a big life change and now they are a different person? Or maybe they just never had the agency to really determine what it is that they wanted. And once you've figured out why, then you know a better path of what to start to work on, whether it's figuring yourself out, whether it's reprogramming kind of what you expect of yourself, and maybe even just taking action, right? But you've got to get clear on the why first. Looks like we have Ivana joining us too.
yeah, so Ivana says, not having goals because you don't even want to be there is very relatable. And then let me see if I can actually move in. We also have Leslie with us. Hi, Leslie. So happy to have you here too. So do corporations feature more on business goals than your personal goals?
Yeah.
These must be aligned. Yes, definitely. And I think that is also a little bit where I struggled in my corporate, because it felt as if, yes, in theory, my personal goals should be aligned to the corporate goals, but the focus was always on the corporation and on the team, or kind of like the smaller setting, right? I wouldn't say that I didn't feel comfortable in there, but I didn't feel comfortable in saying what I really wanted, or not, or even saying that I have no clue what it is that I want, right? Yeah.
So you didn't really have a sense of safety in that role, and also your own personal identity as a corporate employee.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I didn't even want to be there in the first place, even though I didn't really know that at the time, right?
Yeah. So what did that process look like for you to break free of it?
I just quit.
You got up the guts and quit.
Exactly. No, I had been thinking for a long time to start my own business. I even spoke to potential business partners. I had 2.5 business ideas. One business idea, we had the passion, but we didn't have the guts. Yeah. One, we also didn't have the guts, but we also didn't have the passion. And with the half idea, we couldn't even agree on what it was that we wanted to do, right? So, and all of these things, they kind of like were back here, but I didn't really dare to take action. We didn't even dare to test the idea, right? So what happened then was I had a very scary wake-up call where I learned that my father had incurable cancer. So I was like, holy cow, that could be me. That could be any one of us, right? So I handed in my resignation and I had no clue what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go next. And that is also when I started to define goals, actually, for the very first time. I hadn't had that before.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you say that, because that segues perfectly into what we had talked about with this mindset issue, because it sounds like that was the shift for you. It went from like, I have plenty of time left and I can figure it out, to this mindset of like, what if this was my last day? What if I don't have much time? What do I want now? What really matters? And that is so important, because the reality is it could be any one of our last day. And so adopting that mindset allows you to start to experience things for maybe the first time, maybe the last time, and start to savor and enjoy things. I was on a call with a woman yesterday who had that exact same mindset. And she said, with everything, she'd think about maybe it would be her last one, and she would enjoy an apple so much more because it might be her last apple. And it's those little moments that add up to big changes and to fulfillment over time.
Yeah. So it's not as if I'm thinking about it all the time, but it definitely reminds you every now and then. It's really important to think about it. Back then I was my mid-40s and I was like, I only have 20 years until my retirement. It's like, but 20 years is a very, very long time when you kind of like every morning feel like you have a stomach ache and you don't feel as if you're in the right place. So Ivana says also, she also just quit. So we have something in common there, Ivana. And we have someone, LinkedIn user, who says break free equals quit. Sounds about right. And Leslie says, I think it's about fulfilling your potential in a corporate environment. Definitely. And I mean, I'm not saying that everyone needs to break out of corporate. Absolutely not. But it is to take care of the potential that we have and to honor the life that we're having. So I help my clients to create lifestyle businesses, right? And you help people to thrive more in a corporate environment. And Leslie says, I don't want to quit, I want to thrive. Exactly. And I think that is the piece, right?
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, because I ultimately did end up quitting. But I went through a long process before I did make that decision. I tested and tried a lot of different things and different avenues before I ultimately pulled the trigger. And one of the things that I learned in testing things, but also in running my own business, is the mindset of being my own boss regardless. And when I looked at that and eliminated my actual manager or any societal expectations I might have been taking on as kind of, the universe or society being my boss, it allowed me to actually take ownership and set my own level of responsibility. And that's really key for corporate success too. It can be easy to just give up or feel a lack of agency, but realizing that you are your own boss in that situation, regardless of who else you may report to, that you do have choice. You can advocate for yourself, that you can decide how and when and why you work. It may take some negotiating, right? You may have to set some boundaries. It's not always going to be perfect, but by reconnecting to yourself and taking back that level of responsibility, I've seen that work for both me and also for my clients, to reconnect to what's important and to reignite that spark that you may need to really succeed in the corporate environment.
Mm-hmm. If someone feels as if they are not able to be their own boss, I'm getting to one of these difficult questions again. What is the first step? I know as a coach, you work together with them to define their own steps, but let's use some advice here because it's difficult to work with someone here. So we have also Jason who says, ownership of responsibility is a good motivational mindset. Yes, definitely agree.
Yeah. So I think if you're feeling that way, and this is not just a pitch for coaches, but getting support is one of the best ways to start to build that, because you don't want to feel alone and you don't know what you don't know. So seeking out a coach, a mentor, a therapist, a mastermind group to get new ideas, to build a community, and to start to foster more of that confidence building and an understanding of what taking responsibility looks like can really help people to start to get comfortable in that new approach to working.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What about you? What have you seen when people feel like they can't take on that mindset of being their own boss?
It's very kind of very individual, right? And it's also kind of like to go back to identify situations when you were your own boss, to maybe replicate them and start from there again, and start taking, I always say, take small steps, because when we take small steps, eventually they will become a big leap, right?
Absolutely.
So Jason also says time management systems. And I think that time management can be one way to start taking those small steps, to say, okay, so now I dedicate, I don't know, 20 minutes per day to this, or 15 minutes per day to this, or whatever it might be, or maybe just once per week. It doesn't have to be daily, depending on what it is, right?
Yeah, another point that's important to reiterate that you just said is going back to what works. So we've all probably experienced a time when we were happy, or we did feel like we had choice, like we could take responsibility. Going back and looking at that, why was that the case? What was happening then? What can you recreate from that now, whether that's a system or better utilizing time or making a different choice? That can be really empowering to see that we have done this before, or it has worked. There has been a good time in the past. That we can actually start to build on, because it is those smaller steps. It's not about just cutting the cord and quitting right away. That's really scary and typically not going to set you up for success. But also just gritting your teeth and bearing it and making just one small change and hoping that that compounds over time may not always work either. It's got to be a series of small intentional steps.
Absolutely. And also to remember to not be too hard on ourselves or yourself, because in my case, I hadn't done anything for myself my son was, I don't know, 13, 14 at the time. My oldest son was 13, 14 at the time. So I'd always put myself last. And I think that was a little bit what started. So when I talk about the small steps, so what I did was I booked a course just for myself, a writer's course for me, myself, and I, with no family obligation. I could drink a cappuccino when I wanted to drink a cappuccino. I didn't have to care about if anyone was hungry or anyone wanted to do something else. But I just did something for me, for myself, right? To start to take like smaller steps just for you, and to be there for yourself, that it is okay to start loving yourself. So we also have Natasha here. Hi, Natasha. Lovely to have you here. And we also have Suzanne here too. Lovely to have you here too. And to kind of really realize that these small steps might seem like peanuts. You know, I remember when I started coaching, I did my first train clients, right? Training clients. And the steps that they defined were, in my eyes, they were like, oh, are these big enough? So I went to my mentor coach and he was like, well, who defines whether they are big enough, right? Well, the clients do that, obviously, right? And that is, so it's so for each and everyone, it's different. What seems like a huge step to me might be a tiny step to you, and the other way around, right?
Yeah, and looking at that with a lack of judgment, that all action is created equal if it's moving in the right direction. What's comfortable for one may not be comfortable for another, but that's okay, because as long as it's comfortable for you. And what's also coming up for me is that idea of intention, that it's less important what specifically you're doing, and what's more important is why you are doing those specific actions. Where are you hoping that they're going to lead you? What skills are you hoping that that's going to help you build in order to help you become who you really want to be? It's that intentional piece behind it of knowing where and why that really fuels a lot of that growth and helps to minimize kind of the fear in taking some of those steps.
Yeah. So we have a lot of my former colleagues here, actually. So we have Rodney, who has joined too, and Eric, who has joined too. Eric and I have probably not spoken for years, but it's lovely to have you here, Eric. And Eric posted a comment. I will share it with everyone. Routines are a great way of setting yourself up for success. Even small routines in the morning can set your mind in a I have control state that stays with you for the rest of the day. Absolutely. And also the other way around. It can almost ruin your whole day if you get stuck on these things, right? So how would you say, Kate, how if you would start to set up a daily routine, where would you start?
Yeah, there's a couple of key points there. So I agree, Eric. Routines are really important because that's what will help you to build a habit and to have some reliability in your life. I would say starting small. So instead of changing everything, changing your entire daily routine, start with one specific routine and one change within that. So if it's in the morning, maybe it's a very short 2 to 5 minute meditation that you add into it. Or if you're trying to, be healthier, it's a glass or two of water in the morning. It's not.
I thought you were going to say wine. It would be, it would be different than different outcome.
We're there for you, Josephine. I'm here in California for us, but no, but starting with something that's very small and actually marking that action and celebrating it. That's the piece that a lot of people miss, is they may be quick to criticize if they miss it one day, but they don't celebrate the fact that they've done it 5 days in a row. And the more that we actually celebrate and reward ourselves for these positive behaviors, the more likely we are to keep continuing to do them and to build off of them. So that's sort of that first piece of it, is pick one, start small, celebrate it, track it, and then actually look at what are those specific effects, because it's important not to lose that why again, right? Where is this actually getting you towards, and how can you start to build off of those little smaller successes that come up? Because otherwise you can get just controlled by a new routine and sucked into something that isn't actually contributing to that bigger goal long term in the ways that you may need it to.
Yeah. So Jason says, start early, start strong. Well, I'm not the one who starts early. I this morning especially had very troubles getting out of bed because it's now getting a little bit dark outside. It was cold in the room and it was warm underneath the in the bed. Yeah.
You know what my favorite thing to do is with that, though, when I start to say that, I just ask myself, according to whom, right? I didn't start, well, according to whom, right? Compared to somebody who works a night shift, maybe it is early.
Exactly. But that was also one of the things that I had a little bit troubles with, breaking out of this kind of little bit of corporate mindset of if I'm not at my desk at 8 o'clock in the morning and sit, until whatever, or if I take a longer break, it was also like, but says who? I dictate my day now. No one dictates it to me. But that was kind of, you see how habits, or like 20 years of corporate habits, has kind of dictated even my day and how I feel, right? And to get it, it takes time. just because I did something for 20 years, it doesn't mean that it will take 1 week to break it, right?
Right. And to challenge that, it doesn't even mean that you have to necessarily break it. I did the same thing when I left my corporate job, and I would sit at my computer from 9 to 5 and I tracked every minute of everything that I was doing. Did I need to? Probably not, but that was what was ingrained in me. And at the time, it actually felt good because it was my frame of reference. So instead of shaming myself or feeling like, oh, I'm such a failure because I could make a different choice, I just let it be until I started to realize that it didn't serve me or there was something else that I wanted to do. And allowing myself to then adjust was kind of that same mindset of I am my own boss, so I can make that change. Or I can choose to accept that, yeah, I'm just going to continue to use the corporate structure because I know I can rely on it.
Yeah, whatever feels good, right? So Leslie asked, yes, but how much say do we have over our routine? Do we need to dictate this more? And then she added that I'm a mind reader, so maybe I should post that comment because add that. But anyways, I think it depends, Leslie, on how comfortable are you in your current situation, and do you feel that you need to change? You shouldn't change a winning concept. You shouldn't change because of change. That nothing is going to help you there. But if you feel that there is something that needs to be changed, then definitely. And then a question is, has hybrid given us flexibility that caused paranoia? I think that is probably a whole topic for a different session. And I'm definitely not the best person to answer that because I don't need to work in a hybrid environment. Do you have any views on the hybrid environment, Kate?
Well, I do, and I have worked in both in-office, hybrid, and remote work locations. And the one thing that I learned actually stepping away was how much of an impact my own mind and my nervous system impacted my experience. So when I was in the corporate environment, I used to think that sitting at my desk for hours on end meant that I was being productive. When I moved into a hybrid situation, I realized that it didn't have to be always at my desk or in front of my boss, that I could work on my own schedule, and that was fine. Take as much time as I needed to produce, whether that was an hour or a whole day. When I went remote, then yeah, there was that shift where nobody could see you. There were a lot of questions, but what I found was that I would fill in the blanks. So my boss wouldn't necessarily ask me for things, but I would start to find that I was justifying it in my own mind and having some of these conversations, almost preparing for a future, either paranoia or a quick check-in, or failing to meet something. And that didn't actually happen. I was creating it myself. And it wasn't until I stepped away and became my own boss that then it was really clear to me how much of that I was already creating just for myself because I no longer had somebody to report to or that was looking over my shoulder. And so the long story short of it is starting to learn how your own mind and body works can be really empowering to start to separate. What are the patterns that you yourself are perpetuating and that you're projecting onto experiences versus what is actually happening? And I think that is a huge lesson for everybody, corporate employees and self-employed individuals, that can really emerge from working with a therapist or a coach, or being in support groups like things like 12 steps can be really helpful as well for building that self-awareness that can then serve you in any environment that you're in.
I do think though that it's because I've had a manager who was, in my view, a micromanager, and that does build a little bit paranoia. So it's not only if you are in such an environment, either way, either if it's you or if it's the environment or whatever it is, it really helps to talk to someone. I didn't talk to anyone. I quit, right? So that is we all have different ways of how we deal with these things. At the time, I wasn't even aware of coaching or what coaches actually did, and I had my own thoughts of what it is. So to actually maybe also inform yourself what it actually means to have a coach or to talk to someone, because there are also differences, right? And Leslie also says, I'm totally appreciative of the flexibility, and I guess that is the whole point with a hybrid model, isn't it? To be as flexible as possible.
Yeah, but I would even challenge you to say that it can be possible in any different environment. If you're willing to advocate for yourself, get really clear on what it is that you want, why you want it, and have those kind of, I call them sweaty 10-minute conversations that we tend to resist.
Oh, yeah. What's the worst thing that can happen, right?
Yeah.
Probably depends in that situation, but absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So do we have any other questions that have come in, or would it make sense to maybe have some wrapping up?
Yeah, I think are there any questions? Do you have any questions for Leslie or me? Then please post them. I think the questions are a little bit delayed, so I suggest we start wrapping it up. I think there have been some really cool things we have taken from being your own boss independently of whether you're in a corporate environment or whether you're an entrepreneur, to start with a daily routine to help yourself with kind of setting the agenda for the day. I think that is a really good one. Mm-hmm. And then we actually came into a little bit on the hybrid model work environment in the end. Anything that you would like to add, Kate?
So I think that really focuses on kind of the practical and tactical side of it. And where I would add in is that it's really important, no matter where you are working and what you are doing, before making a transition, to get clear on who you are, what you want, and why you want it. Once you work through those three things, typically the path forward is pretty clear and pretty easy to follow. But doing that internal work first can really set the stage for being able to clearly set routines, to stick to changes that go on, and to accept all of the good things that can be possible by really taking charge.
Absolutely. And nothing is set in stone. And you don't need to know the full steps of your path, because no one does. We didn't know 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago that we would actually sit here today. And I think that is also amazing. It shows that everything is possible, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, and that's kind of that mindset too, of just, what is possible right now? What do I want right now? What can I do right now? Let the rest unfold, because there's no need to put a lot of pressure on ourselves. I think that's something that you and I have both learned the hard way.
Yeah, we're still learning. So anyways, Kate, if people want to connect with you, how do they best connect with you? Because we are live on a different platform. So how do they best connect with you?
Absolutely. Well, I can be found through my website, kateturnercoaching.com. And I'm also very active on LinkedIn and welcome any and all connections there as well. And my handle on LinkedIn is Kate Turner 9.
Okay, so are there 8 Kate Turners before you, or did you just?
No, I chose it a while ago, and I was trying to come up with a number that was like easy to communicate over the phone. Kate Turner 8 is like 2 rhymes.
So it's Kate Turner 9 on LinkedIn or kateturnercoaching.com, right?
Correct. And how can we find
and mine is Josefine Wanner on LinkedIn. It's josephinewanner.com. Josefine Wanner everywhere on all the other platforms too. So if there are anything you want to tell us or connect with us, then feel free to connect with us, because we love connections, and that's what we're here for. And that is also why we showed up today, to share a little bit about ourselves and to hear about your questions. And we've got some really cool comments today. So I'm really happy to be here. And thank you so much. And thank you, Leslie, for being so active too. And
thank you.
And Jason and Arik and everyone else who showed up today. So thank you so much.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.